G'day gang, Simo and Ed back here, and this week we're talking about follow-up.
We are indeed.
Don't fuck up the follow-up.
I love that.
So you're watching the Fast Line Track Race Show where we talk all things karting and business. So, follow-up.
Yeah, it's one area that everybody sucks at.
Everybody.
Yeah, so the fact that I've just used a blanket term to describe everybody in the globe, it must be accurate. People always go, yeah, but I know the company that does really well at this, and we do really well at it. And actually, it's so rare to find people that did the follow-up correctly. I don't.
No, I don't either.
I do a decent job, but it's a decent job. I ain't going to be sitting here going, let me show you what I do for the follow-up, because I think I'd be slightly embarrassed and squirming a little bit. It's an area that needs continual process and work on, just to make sure that it's getting done properly.
I mean, we were only talking about this yesterday.
Well, we were.
Yeah.
It was yesterday, so I can't remember what were you saying.
We were talking about developing a better automated follow-up system.
Yeah.
You know, because you leave this to humans, and it's tough because it's a lot of repetition, and therefore they lose interest over time.
It's complex, isn't it? So typically, quite often in the sales, not always, but quite often in the sales environment, it can be post-sale, of course, but typically you're looking to do that in a sales environment to go and follow up on a potential lead you've had. Now, if you ring up and say, oh, you inquired about going on a go-kart race, are you interested? And they go, no. Very difficult to get the second conversation going. So you've got to really think about what you're saying in the first conversation. And that's just 2 follow-ups. Now, I know there's a stat that you mentioned to me earlier today about how many follow-ups you need to go and get a sale.
Well, you know, anywhere between 7 and 26. Now, that'll depend on the product.
Yeah.
I think,
and your audience and all the rest of it.
You know, and for my line of business, if it's a parts order, the number of follow-ups is a lot less than if it's a capital purchase like helmets, a fleet of helmets, a fleet of race suits, a timing system, etc., etc.
Yeah, so what you've identified there, you've got people who absolutely bloody need something, and somebody just wants because there's a bit of desire for it, right? A good friend of mine, Tom, used to speak about this quite a lot when he did presentations from the stage, and the amount of work that you need to do to get somebody who absolutely bloody needs something over the sales line is actually very low. And somebody who actually just wants because they've got a desire for it, actually there's a lot of work to be done there. So, and if we use birthday party, because I know go-kart tracks use this as a great example, when somebody says, we're thinking about having a party down at the track for one of our kids' birthdays, for argument's sake, that's a want. But the closer and closer they get to the birthday, you can't have a birthday like 3 months after the birthday, you know, only in exceptional circumstances.
Like COVID.
You know, the closer they get to that date, the more it becomes less of a want and more of a need to sort something out before it becomes a problem. So the number of follow-ups that you have will be dependent on where they've come into the system. But I think the real fact is most go-kart tracks don't follow up.
Well, no, that's the thing. And a lot of people don't follow up. You think of the trade shows you've gone to and you've inquired, and then no follow up. I mean, we're trying to hold a race to crown the fastest go-kart track in the world at Dortmund.
Yep.
During the karting spectacular. I've run 3 tracks.
Yep.
Right? Well, we've emailed 3 tracks, sorry. Yep. 2 have come back to me.
Yeah.
The third one, I'm still waiting for it, and we're 3 or 4 weeks since we made the request. Now, the first 2 came back rather quickly.
Yeah.
But I haven't heard from them since.
Crikey. Okay.
Now, you know, this is a sizable.
It's like 100 people, isn't it? 100 head counts.
Yeah, we're going lower. We don't think everyone's going to want to race, but
okay. But even if you had 50 head counts,
60 people, I think it was for
in the middle of January, that's probably chunky, sizable business for that go-kart track at that time of year, I would suggest.
Oh yeah.
And we haven't heard from them. I did a talk from the stage in Frankfurt. I talked about 2 large enterprises of go-kart companies. I stood there with a genuine request that I put in with them, and I showed people in the audience that this is the request I put in. And I did a line, didn't I, where I said, can you believe it took one of the companies, I'm pretty sure I didn't name them, so one of the companies it took 9 days for them to come back, and the whole audience went, whoa, like it would never happen in their track. And then just as it died down, I went, I'm still waiting to hear from the other one, and they were like, no way, like they just didn't follow up on a genuine inquiry, where I ended up spending some sizable sums of money.
And the one you were waiting, the one that you hadn't responded to, you'd already had the event.
Yeah. They came back eventually, but it was so late. Well-known track in the UK. It was so slow to respond to me. And they found their way to a marketing presentation from the stage in Frankfurt. Not by name though, in case they get a little bit shirty.
Don't sit there and think this doesn't happen in my business. Well, because it will be happening.
If the big tracks aren't getting it right, some of the smaller tracks with fewer personnel, maybe potentially less resources.
They're bound to be doing too. And so you've got that bunch that never follow up. Then you've got that bunch that might follow up 2 or 3 times and just get drained by it.
Yeah, and sidetracked to the stuff going on. Yeah.
So it's really difficult to get that 7 to 26 follow-ups.
Of course, I mean, like, you can automate it. I mean, the downside with that is most people can tell when you're just getting automated messages that are really consistent of your follow-up. So your best bet to make it really work for you, if you can do it and you've got somebody that is just really anal about making sure that they make the whole follow-up all the way through and nothing ever stops them, that is the best.
Yeah.
But automating, not a bad way to go, but probably a combo.
Oh, absolutely. I think a combo is a sort of like, there's some well-written emails to nudge, but it's got to be dispersed with intermittent phone calls too.
Yeah, and they're tough emails to write, but they're worth the effort, because you've got to make sure there's a platform for conversation. And if you're doing that and your follow-up's sorted, crikey, you'll just start to see that play out. And it's really good money spent, because you can start to map out how much extra money it's returning you just simply by having a proper follow-up process, making sure that nothing slips through the cracks. And even better than that, if you don't get them this time and you've looked after them really well with great customer service,
you might get them next time.
You're going to get them another time, or they're going to refer you on. So business will just start to grow from just a little bit of effort. Really, really smart to follow up. Very rare to find any company that does it.
No, it's just difficult, but it's well worth it. I know I will occasionally go and grab the quotes list here.
Yeah.
Right, and I'll spend 3 or 4 hours in an afternoon ringing up quotes that haven't been fulfilled.
Well, you spend 10 minutes swearing.
Yeah. And
then a couple of hours just chatting to people that have put quotes in.
I can do, a third of the daily target just by doing that.
Just by following up. You've spent all your money getting them across the line and getting
absolutely.
the inquiry, and then most people stop at that point. Absolute business suicide.
There you go.
Cool.
Don't fuck up the follow-up.
True that.
Well, it's goodbye from me.
Cheerio from me.
And we'll see you next week.